Hello and welcome to Balanced Existence. Today I have a channeled message that was coming through so strongly to me about friendships. So this video is going to attract anyone who may be feeling like they've gone through friendship breakups, or they've been re-evaluating their friendships in some way, or even just gaining clarity on values and what matters to you in friendships. So, of course, the spirit of this channel is to help us live in greater balance. And I've been tapping into this spectrum as it relates to the style by which we make friendships in our lives. And this isn't about right or wrong way to do things. This is really just about kind of archetypal representations of how we navigate our life and how we make friends and the type of friends we attract, and like I said, the style by which we make friends. And so on one side of the spectrum, you have those who have many people, many acquaintances and friends in their life. And on the other side of the spectrum, you have those who have a very small, select few. And so because there's only so much time that we have in our lives to, have conversations and spend quality time and all of the things that build intimacy in our friendships and relationships. Because of that fact, typically when you err on the side of the spectrum where you have more people in your life, each of those people will have less of a depth or intimacy compared to the side of the spectrum that may only have a few people in their life. For example, if you spend 4 hours talking to your best friend, that's a long time, right? Like if you have 3 best friends, you can spend 12 hours having a really long, in-depth conversation with them and building a lot of deep intimacy. Whereas if you have that same 12 hours, but you're on the other side of the spectrum where you have a lot of people and acquaintances in your life, if you have 12 people in your life, then with 12 hours, you would only have an hour with each of those people, for example, right? So I say this to set the stage of the practical logistics, because as you've seen in previous readings, it's really important for us to understand the facets of life, and that we all have dreams and desires and things we want to pursue. But the reason I love doing readings and reflections around the 7 facets of life is because it really puts everything in perspective. Like you can be in a phase or a season of your life where you really want to focus on work, or you really want to focus on career, or you really want to focus on dating or your romantic relationship, or your children, or your health and your routines, and getting enough sleep and meal prepping and exercising. Or maybe you want to really focus on your spirituality and you want to meditate more. Or maybe you want to focus on your free time hobbies, or recreational activities, or travel, or you want to organize your home, or you want to buy a new home or move somewhere. Like there's so many things in life that we can be spending our time doing, and the fact of the matter is we do have a limited amount of time each day and each week and each month that requires us to prioritize. So I always want to set this stage, because as we dream and as we visualize the life we want, we also need to ground it into reality of what's practical and what's possible and feasible. So now that you can you've probably already subconsciously placed yourself on this spectrum, right? Maybe you're totally far on one side or totally far on the other, or to you, maybe you have like a good balance of, you have a few close friends, but you have a few acquaintances, whatever that might be for you. And again, this isn't like a good or bad or a right or wrong. This is just kind of, where do you stand, and do you like where you are on the spectrum, or do you kind of wish you leaned a different way on the spectrum? So that's kind of set the stage of like how we make friends and the type of connections that we form. So I feel that this collective may have any variety, like you may be anywhere on this spectrum. I do feel that when you're on a spiritual journey or undergoing any kind of spiritual awakening, you will often go through this hermit phase where you may realize that certain friendships don't speak to you anymore, or you may lose friendships that you actually wish that you could have kept, but it was almost like the universe was pruning them out of your life on purpose. And then later in life, maybe you're able to look back at that with more clarity and recognize that it was a blessing in disguise, right? It could be either way. You may come to a realization that you want to prune a friendship from your life, or it may be pruned from your life before you actually wanted it to or felt ready for it. And that can be kind of a heartbreaking scenario, or it can feel like rejection that we internalize. So I do feel that this is a common experience in spiritual collectives, is because we're going inward on such an authentic, deep level. And I'm getting chills channeling into this, because the vulnerability to go in with yourself is so cleansing, and it really puts you into your flow state. It really connects you to your highest self, connects you with source, with divine source energy, and you really begin to glow with authenticity. However, the thing about authenticity is that it's very particular. It's very authentic to you. It's unique to you. So when you're glowing with this energy of authenticity, whether you like it or not, it's going to attract and repel accordingly. Now, we can intellectually agree that, of course, we would rather live our more authentic selves than to not, right? So we can conceptually accept the fact that we are growing into our more authentic selves, and as a result, we are then attracting or repelling certain friendships. And that's just a natural, necessary part of our spiritual evolution. So I would love to hear from you in the comments if this is resonating, or, if you've gone through things like this. But basically, for those who are sensitive or empaths, regardless of whether this is before your spiritual awakening, or if it's kind of something that you grew into on the spiritual journey, typically you'll find yourself relating to less people than you did before as you're stepping into a more authentic energy. Now, this is just typically, maybe for some, you went through a spiritual awakening that really opened your heart and allowed you to connect with others more. Like, it allowed you to connect with people who were different from you, right? There's going to be different scenarios. But for many in the spiritual collective, it starts with a pruning. It starts with kind of a cleansing of, I think I've given this analogy before, but like if you're trying to remodel or redesign your home, and so you want to get a new couch and a new dining table, you're going to have to clear the existing ones out before you can move in a new one. You're not just going to have two couches in your living room, while, you're not going to get the new couch before you've gotten rid of the old one. And this isn't the perfect analogy for friendships, but it does make sense when you think about how I was talking about how we only have so much time, right? If we only have 12 hours of social free time in a week, which even that is a lot of time. That's like almost 2 hours a day. Most people don't have almost 2 hours a day to spend socially. And I mean like genuinely social, not social media, but, in person or face to face or eye contact kind of social fulfillment. But I do believe that there is this typical progression where the spiritual person prunes those from their life that become no longer a match. And then as they go inward, they go through their hermit phase, they step into their authenticity, they really get to learn and know and love themselves to greater depths, then they kind of undergo this heart awakening that then allows them to see the love and compassion and understanding in other people. So instead of feeling like you can only be friends with people who are exactly on your journey, you're able to kind of have this open heart, judgment-free approach. Now, there's still this boundary where within that boundary is the relationships and friendships that meet your standards, that are compatible, that are aligned with you. But it doesn't mean that only the people who are identical in your exact journey and values fit in that boundary. That's for you to determine how similar or different, right, you want people in your kind of bubble of attraction to be. You know, some people are okay with being friends with people who have completely different political views or lifestyles. Some people prefer to have circles of people where they share similar values and lifestyles because it helps them feel more connected, or like there's more structure in their life, or they feel more connected by being able to bond through those similarities, right? So that's, again, not a right or wrong. It's just for you to determine where you stand in that and what your standards and expectations are in terms of what you believe to be compatible and aligned with you. Okay, so we kind of understand this progression of, you know, pruning some friendships, but then also maybe opening your heart, opening your mind to certain relationships that in the past you may not have been able to. So I would, again, love to hear from you in the comments in terms of what out of this is resonating with you. And if you're at this part of your journey where you feel like maybe even disappointed or just unsatisfied or unfulfilled with your current friendships, I just want to send a message of encouragement that you don't need to worry about opening your heart and opening your mind. And, you know, you don't want to end up forcing friendships just for the sake of trying to be more accepting of people. You know, if you've had people pleaser tendencies, allow yourself to go through this pruning, allow yourself to lean into the hermit phase and to not be afraid of having seasons of time, like short phases or periods where you maybe are a little bit more secluded so that you can recalibrate within before we go out and try to mend or attract friendships. And so that's for your intuition only to interpret this. So maybe you feel like you have done a lot of pruning and you've been in this hermit phase and now you're ready to come out of it. And so this is an exciting time for you to kind of come out of the cave and feel the sun beating on your face and just opening yourself to who's out there and who is aligned and what feels good, what friendships or what friendship groups feel good to you. Maybe you feel like you've been really selective and you want to be a little bit more open, or maybe you feel like you've been really open and you've had a lot of acquaintances, but you'd like to focus on having a more selective few close friends. So really allow your intuition to take you on this journey of reflection. And I'm getting chills channeling into this, and I'm picking up a message to tell you that this is a great journaling exercise. You can journal gratitude about your existing friendships. You can journal gratitude about the challenges and the friendship breakups you've gone through. You can do a scripting visualization of a completely hypothetical but dream vision of what a ideal friendship would look like for you, or not even just a singular friendship, but you could do this for an entire social life. You can journal about an entire week of how you would spend your time socially. You know, maybe you would go to the gym and you would have a workout class that you have friends in, or like a yoga class, or maybe you would have a group that you go on a hike with, or maybe you would have a book club, Or maybe you have kids and you would have other parents that you hang out with, or maybe you would do more things with your neighbors, or maybe your existing friends, you would just spend more time calling them while you go on a walk, or maybe you would do a regular once every week or two girls' night or brunch, or, whatever it is to you, like what feels exciting. Because then when you journal that and you really tap into that, then, and I'm getting chills again, like you are tapping into that manifestational energy, which is just so powerful. And you've hit that sweet spot of that flow state when you're smiling as you journal, or when you're smiling as you meditate and think about these scenarios. And maybe you want to reflect on some past memories of, cracking up with your friends, or having a really powerful heart-to-heart that brought tears to your eyes with a friend. Any memory that you've had in the past, even if you're not friends with that person anymore, or it's kind of a more nostalgic, bittersweet memory, anything that can put you in that feeling of appreciation and social fulfillment and connection is exactly that flow state that we're seeking when we do these kinds of exercises. Okay, so that was a beautiful little tangent that came through. So what I really want to get at here is that, it's easy to say, oh, quality over quantity, but, this is why I say there's no right or wrong here, because you might, especially if you're a sensitive empath person, or somebody who's gone through a spiritual awakening, and you happen to be at a time in your life right now where you're a little bit more selective and secluded, you might immediately think, oh, well, quality over quantity. Of course, it's better to have a few people that are closer than it is to have, 12 acquaintances. But this is the beautiful part of the duality of the world we live in, is that there's actually there's pros and cons of everything, right? Like there's beauty on all sides. And so, and I'm getting chills channeling into this, like so many chills, but when you think about the side of the spectrum that you have 12 acquaintances, you might think, well, there's a lack of depth. You can't possibly reach the amount of depth, with a person that you only talk to for 1 hour a week than you would with someone that you talk to for 4 hours a week. But this is this like concept that Spirit wants to enlighten you with here, which is that when you have 12 different people, that means you have 12 different areas of life that you have someone to connect with on, right? And of course, maybe with the 3 friends that you talk to for 4 hours, maybe you have 4 areas of life that you can each connect with them on, right? Who knows? I mean, I'm making it quantitative to explain it, but it's so much more complex and nuanced than that. But the thing about having 12 acquaintances is that 1 hour of talking to that 1 out of 12 acquaintances does not mean that just because you only had an hour with that person, that it's any less intimate than the friend that you talked for 4 hours with, right? You can still have deep intimacy, even if you just connect on one tiny little aspect of life. It can be something that really bonds you with somebody. So in that sense, having more things to bond over with a certain person is not necessarily better either, right? Just like having more friends you might think is not necessarily better. So I really want us to view intimacy and connection as this ebbing and flowing energy that's being transacted between us at all times, right? You can go to the grocery store and have a 5-minute conversation with a random person and feel like you've really connected with them on a soul level. And this is kind of the part of the journey where you can start feeling your heart open up. And instead of feeling this kind of rigid, oh, I had this friend, but they didn't meet my expectation. I had this friendship breakup. It really made me feel rejected, or it really broke my heart. And I want this kind of a friend, and I want that. And it's like, you have so many beautiful opportunities for connection everywhere you go. The person that you're passing in the street, your neighbor, the stranger at the store, like let's not forget that we are all humans, right? Like we're all made up of the same energy. And sometimes we get so much in our mind and our ego as to the expectations of what our friends should be like. And anyone who's not that is just not really worth addressing, right? Especially in this day and age of social media and us being, less friendly and approachable. At least I've noticed in the past couple decades, as we've kind of lost that social spark because of how much time and energy and socialization we spend in kind of more virtual, social media worlds, right? So I just invite you to, even if this is just planting a seed and maybe it's not fully resonating, maybe you're not the kind of person who's super extrovert and just sparks up random conversations with people at the post office, but even if this just plants a seed on the spiritual awakening journey of yours, because I know that if you're here, you're in a spiritual collective, you're on some kind of spiritual journey, which ultimately is for your evolution. And there is no evolution that does not involve an expansion and a opening of the heart. And so what we can all agree on is that wherever you're at in this journey and whatever side of the spectrum you land on, there is heart opening, heart chakra opening and growth and expansion of the love you're able to give and receive, the love you're able to feel for others and feel for yourself. And so I hope that this is planting a seed so that you can start to recognize it more. And I think that if you're here, you're on that journey, and this message is giving you that nudge and giving you that reminder of where you're at. And so, especially because our ego loves to replay these stories of, oh, I had that friend, but then they did that and da 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 da. It's like, don't forget, you're part of this bigger picture, right? Like that friendship breakup or that friend that you're not really sure if you guys are still resonating, and all these things that you're allowing to stress you out, which is a completely normal human response because, of course, social belonging has been a crucial part of our survival for many years, even though it doesn't seem like it in the life or death sense of survival. But these are, of course, normal human reactions to feel stress about the connections we make or the connections that are broken, things like that. But, those experiences are a blip in the total evolution of you and your soul in this lifetime and in your many lifetimes, and the overall evolution of the earth, where the earth is undergoing this ascension process that is ultimately, although it doesn't always feel like it, it is leading to a more heart open, loving, peaceful world. Now, having said that, I do want to take a moment to talk about friendship breakups. Because sometimes we think that it's the relationship, the romantic relationship breakups that are the more painful ones. But sometimes, a friendship breakup can feel more painful than you expected it to, or it's more painful than you realize in the moment. And especially if you err on the side of the spectrum where you have fewer closer friends, like deeper intimacy friends, but fewer of them. Like let's say you have 3 best friends and you lose one of them. I mean, that's like a 33%, like that's a lot. If you have 12 friends and you only lose one of them, like it's not nearly that, maybe it doesn't feel that devastating of a loss in terms of the amount of social fulfillment that you're getting from each person. So I think that that's an important concept for us to recognize as to, how, who our social circle is made of. And I like to think of my friendships on different tiers where I have, and not in like an excluding way, but in a way where I just feel like, okay, this person I have more intimacy with because of maybe I have more consistency with them, or maybe we just kind of have this kind of unspoken soul bond, or connection or compatibility of some kind. And so they're like kind of tier one. They know the most about me. I feel the most vulnerable with them. Whatever you determine to be the definition of deep intimacy, right? And then you may have other friends, tier 2, 3, 4, 5, however you want to categorize it. But, by that nature, and not to make this any kind of a hierarchy, but by that nature, you're going to feel more value in terms of the social fulfillment that you receive, based on the tier of that person's friendship with you. And so when you lose somebody who's so valuable, and who, again, like maybe the friendship is a friendship that you decide it's drifting, like maybe they used to be tier 1, but then you kind of feel like there's misalignment, and then you start to drift, and then maybe you consciously make that decision after they've already been kind of demoted in your mind to tier 5 or something like that. But other times, maybe you have a tier 1 friend and you really want to be close with them, but then something happens in their lives that makes them unavailable to you. And so then you feel maybe this rejection, or whatever it may be for you, whatever experience it may translate to. But ultimately, there's so many different scenarios where you might lose or shift a friendship dynamic. And I think it's important for us to understand the basic human social needs of belonging and consistency and trust, and for you to understand like what matters to you. Maybe for certain friendships, you need a little bit more consistency, and for other friendships, you don't really have that expectation, and maybe for certain friendships, you have particular benefits that you get from them that really bring a lot of value to your life and make you feel really socially fulfilled. And so when you lose that, it can feel like there's like a hole where you once had fulfillment. And so then there's a call for you to reflect and recognize what it is that you're feeling and why that is. And then when you get to that point of clarity, you then know what, you have that awareness, and then you know how to proceed, and you know what it is that matters to you. And sometimes that was the reason for it. Like you were just meant to learn that lesson. So I hope that this is helping you or encouraging you to kind of see whatever experiences you may have gone through in a way that is for you, not against you, meaning it's for your growth, it's for your evolution. And like I say in so many readings, like the ability to flow with life and say yes to life, and to accept challenges with open arms, and to know that you have the resilience to grow from them, and then to proceed with this inspired, motivated openness to keep going and to keep learning. Like that is the best way you can navigate through life, even in the midst of really painful or challenging friendship dynamics. So, and like I also say in many of my readings, it's not about emotionally bypassing or, mentally talking yourself out of whatever difficult or unpleasant emotional state you're in. It's about allowing yourself to feel it, while also having in the back of your mind that knowing that there's a greater purpose at play here. Even if you don't know what it is, at least you can have that comforting thought in your mind that there's something that you're going to learn from this. And knowing that does not mean you have to immediately feel better, but it's just something to comfort you while you're going through whatever discomfort you're going through. But I also really just wanted to validate those on the spiritual journey, and I'm getting chills, those on the spiritual journey that have gone through such drastic, sometimes even sudden, unexpected, sometimes maybe more slower and predictable, but these changes in our social lives and the way that we attract and maintain friendships and what that looks like for us. It's such a relatable and necessary part of the spiritual journey. And I think it's so beautiful that we're able to connect with each other online, and we have a comment section and we can share our journey and we can reply to others, and that's beautiful. It's not to replace eye contact and in-person fulfillment, but it can surely help us, especially those of us who are in a hermit phase or who feel a little secluded or who have undergone any kind of loss or, reduction in the amount of friends they have. It's nice to know that there are communities and collectives that we are pulled to in this virtual space, that we can feel more seen and we can have that comfort, because again, that kind of social belonging is so important for us to feel fulfilled in life. So I hope this has helped to kind of relieve some of the pressure and maybe expectations you have, and to recognize that this is part of your soul's journey, and to kind of trust in that process, and as well as to maybe recognize the beauty of diversifying our experiences, just as we diversify our interests and our hobbies and all of the various lessons we learn in life. It can be useful to diversify our friendships as well, and to open ourselves to new things that we might not have in the past. I think we spend so much time and energy thinking about and prioritizing our romantic relationships. And of course, that's the person you want to grow old with or have a family with. There's something very special about that connection. But we have very diverse social and emotional needs as humans, and we are relational beings. So a lot of our emotional regulation is done through co-regulation with other beings, right? So our friendships are such a critical part of that social and emotional need. So I hope this kind of helps kind of calibrate your system wherever you're at in your journey right now, whatever experiences you may have gone through. And like I also say often, the point of balance is not to be in the middle of the spectrum. It means that you can go from either side back and forth in whatever way feels balanced to you. Or maybe you are on one side of the spectrum and you find balance within that. And maybe part of that balance is experimenting with the other side of the spectrum. Maybe it's finding balance in a way that still has you leaning more towards one way, if that's what you're drawn towards, right? Balance does not mean being perfectly in the middle and doing all the dualities of life equally, right? It's about what feels good to you and what feels intuitively aligned for your lifestyle and for your soul. So I hope that you feel confident and empowered wherever you're at in your soul journey, and especially as it relates to the friendships that you've made or lost, or that you look forward to attracting. And that's the beauty of having that self-awareness, that observer mindset, the ability to recognize that you are a piece of this greater source energy, and your consciousness is a single point of perspective that may change and may shift, but it's always a single lens that your consciousness is operating out of. And so when you're able to zoom out and see things from a different perspective, then that's always such a beautiful experience, because you're getting a taste of the ever expanding, limitless duality of life. And so when we open our heart and we're able to see the beauty of alternate perspectives, there can be something really eye-opening and magical and fulfilling about that. And when we release those judgments, and those assumptions that somebody has to think the same way as me in order to be compatible with me, and again, this is to your limit. Like maybe you want to be friends with people who are the same religion or same lifestyle. that is completely your call. And if you feel like that brings balance to your life, then that is for your intuition to decide. But maybe for some of us, we feel like we kind of put ourselves into this box because we felt like it would give our lives more structure or even more control if we were surrounded by people who had the exact same thoughts or beliefs or values as us. And maybe we realize that that's brought us to a point where that no longer serves us. So you could be anywhere in the wide range of possible experiences on this journey. And so to be able to have that reflection and to bring those kind of subconscious paradigms that we're operating in to the surface and to see them for what they are, and then for you to be able to make that conscious decision from a soul and intuitively led place, that is such a breakthrough on this journey. And I really feel like that's what this collective is doing. And so I really invite you to review your friendship facet, your community facet, and how you show up and what you look for in a friend. What are the traits, what are the values that actually truly matter to you and your soul? Not because you grew up taught that they mattered, or not because you had so many experiences that made you think that they mattered, but what really feels right to you. And maybe there's some aspect of your friendships that is asking you to branch out or try things a different way or open up to something new. Or maybe you're gaining clarity on how you want to be more discerning or selective. Wherever you're at, I hope that you see it as a blessing on this journey. So I think that is what I have for you today. That was a bit longer of a channeling, but I hope that this message reached you and resonated with you in whatever way it needed to. And again, as I always say, I would love to hear from you in the comments, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.